Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. Let me start by thanking the Osiris project for inviting me to be here today. Let me also welcome in this meeting so many people that I have been meeting in the last few years in the context of my responsibilities in DGIM. So I'm very glad also that in the audience is Thierry van der Pil. For the ones that are more attentive to the internal organizations of the Commission, you will know that the Director General will become Connect by the 1st of July. By that time will be reorganized, and Thierry will be taking over the responsibility on e-infrastructure. So I think that this is a very good opportunity also for me to welcome him on board and wishing him good luck, and as much luck as I had in the last 10 or 12 years in which I've been crossing my professional life with the professional life of so many of you. And because the challenge was to think about the future, I thought that was also important to see where we come from. And maybe 25 years ago would be not a lot of researchers that would envisage what could be their life today, full of very powerful mobile phones or computers. Connected to each other, providing information at any moment in time. Even less maybe they would think that my daughter, that is an architect, has been now with me for 1 month in Brussels working in a project supervised by a Portuguese architect and delivering rendered images of very high quality to foresee what is going to be the building that they are collectively putting in place. Today, a telephone maybe brings actually a million times cheaper and 1,000 times more powerful than the world-leading computers in 1970s. And we don't need to bring behind us a roulotte to keep it. We can put it in our pocket. Like the researchers are using this today, I think that we see already our citizens profiting from this power. And while today they are participating and receiving information from social networks, tomorrow their mobile phones, or whatever they will be called, in their pockets will interact freely with each other to probably pass very crucial information sensed from the environment where the person is moving. Today we have G1, the research network's effort to bring all universities and research centers connected in Europe. We have G1 providing more than 40 million users, students, scholars, researchers, in more than 8,800 research and education institutions across 40 countries. But what can we expect after the results of the recent procurement? Can we aim to have communications point to point, and are we ready to get a next step when it comes to serve the communities that by definition are the most advanced communities in Europe? Today, computational infrastructure and services, and I speak here in general about high-performance computers or grids or clouds attaching to it the world of simulation, software and tools, are being used and tailored to the needs of a plethora of researchers and also of industry. We have in Europe a very good grid infrastructure. It's probably the largest and the most distributed computing infrastructure. It spans over the 50 countries and more than 300 locations. So when we think about cloud for government, cloud for industry, can we leverage what we learned in this domain? Can we take examples like the initiative Helix Nebula and use it to build the clouds for the citizens of the future? Today, researchers are handling more and more, bigger and bigger amounts of data. Data is shared at a fantastic speed, and this is becoming the infrastructure par excellence for all the researchers. We talk here about data generated by telescopes, data generated when you produce image technologies for Earth observation, or even when we are talking about DNA sequencing. This requires not just the interoperability between networks and computing infrastructures, but requires that we increase our abilities to store, to access, and to curate data, and to attach to it the services that the researchers need. Big data is, in my view, the key factor to transform the way science and research is done today. But what about society? Big data is also transforming society. There is plenty of initiatives that use data generated by social networks or by sensors to provide new services for our communities, in particular in, for example, the context of smart cities. Today, interdisciplinary research leads to breakthroughs in science and technology. And I think that this is bringing us to domains that were not imaginable just a few years ago. Here, again, we bring the power of data sharing with the ability to promote computationally complex simulations and to put all that at the service of the wide collaboration between people, between researchers in different parts of the world. And again, when just a few days ago I received the chief architect of the city of Barcelona, he was explaining to me how important it is to have interdisciplinary approach, an holistic approach to the design of the cities of the future, of the societies of the future. Infrastructures for connectivity, computation, and for data have in fact given rise to a number of services tailored, designed to meet the needs of researchers, to meet the needs of cross-national, cross-organizational, and cross-disciplinary boundaries. We believe that infrastructures, as they have been developed in the last few years and as they will continue being developed in the next few years, will actually bring a lot of benefit to the way we do research. In my view, they actually will revolutionize the science, and I would say the engineering and the humanities. So as I try to briefly refer in my series of examples and transporting always in parallel what we are doing for researchers and what can be the benefits for our citizens, I think that we can say that ICT-based infrastructures have been changing the way we understand research, changing the way we learn, but equally they will be changing the way we live, and this will bring therefore benefits to all our citizens. When you think about ICT research infrastructures, there has been, and I think that is even more important now than ever, this double point of view. ICT research, ICT infrastructures for research, including, as I said, computation and data-intensive science, but also the use of infrastructures for ICT research. It is not possible that you conceive research on ICT without testing, without bringing it into some kind of experimental facilities. And therefore, facilities for nanoelectronics or facilities for future internet like FIRE, or the development of environments where robots can interact, or even the bringing of multidisciplinary people into living labs to try to test how innovation is perceived by citizens or by researchers becomes core of our approach. Horizon 2020, as David mentioned, is our new program for research and innovation. And I stress here innovation because this is really, I think, a serious attempt by all of us to reflect the importance that the research communities are giving to the innovation part. In the Horizon 2020, we have, as David presented, three important priorities. A priority around the societal issues, a priority around science, and a priority around our industrial leadership. But when we think about ICT infrastructures in Horizon 2020, let me see what are the key objectives that we are trying to address there. First, as David mentioned, it's very important to us to continue developing new world-class research infrastructures. He mentioned clearly the importance of the S3 roadmap on this process. We have been engaged on that process since a few years ago. As he also referred, we are discussing in the context of G20 how we can coordinate the launching of new world-class facilities at a global level. But it's also important to integrate and open up the existing national research infrastructures, in particular the one that have a pan-European interest. Here is very important that we collaborate with other funds that exist at European level, like the regional and structural funds, to make sure that the regeneration of research infrastructures in certain parts of Europe is taking place. But also at the same time, the development and the deployment and the operation of what we call e-infrastructures. Those, in some sense, the three vertical sides correspond to lines of research that have been taken already in the past. But it is also very important that we now add the aspect of the innovation that research infrastructures can bring. Just some examples. When you think about high-performance computing and you think about the power that this can bring to small and medium enterprises, you clearly understand that there is a gap that we have to overcome. This is, we have to facilitate the access of small and medium enterprises to high-performance computing. And this is not just facilitating the access to the codes or to the computing power. It's also to train, it's also to make sure that we have a partnership that allows for exploiting this innovation potential. Also strengthening the human capital of research infrastructures. This is very key. And so when we think about research infrastructures in the context of Horizon 2020, certainly we are not just cornering our activities into the excellent science base that is the par definition where the research infrastructure, in particular the e-infrastructures, get their main budget. But we will, I think, exploit the power and the vision that Horizon 2020 brings, that there are really three priorities, but they are not three exclusive parts. The priorities means that there will be a concrete interaction from any perspective between what is being done in societal challenges, in industrial leadership, and on science base. If I take the same example that I just mentioned about the SME's use of simulation, complex simulation or high-performance computing, I can see it very much tackling some of the societal challenges like health or environment, while at the same time reinforce the tissue of SMEs that actually constitute the basis for our industrial competitiveness. So you see that addressing research infrastructures, like actually addressing any perspective in Horizon 2020, is also to have an attention to the three priorities: tackling societal challenges, industrial leadership, and excellence on science. But I believe that this matricial approach is going to be particularly important for research infrastructures, because research infrastructures, in my view, in our view, they actually underpin and enable a lot of other actions in other parts, in other priorities of the Horizon 2020 program. So this holistic perspective, I think, will be a key for the success of research infrastructures and e-infrastructures in particular in the context of Horizon 2020. I will not tell you much more than what I just said, but just to recall that the activities that we are going to do in Horizon 2020 also have to be linked to the reinforcement of policies on research infrastructure and also to facilitate international cooperation. And when we think about the vision of infrastructures, I think that I cannot put it more synthetic than saying that our vision for infrastructure is achieving by 2020 a single and open European space for online research, something that we could have the courage to call a digital European research area. I think that when we think about the European research area, we sometimes think about the borders between countries and the difficulties that inherently this brings to creation of an European research area, of a common European research area. And sometimes we focus our attention in overcoming the limits of those borders. I think that when we think about ICT-based infrastructures, I think that when we think digital, we have to exploit the positive aspects of creating an European digital, an European research area that is digital and that exploits the power of data, that exploits the power of infrastructures that know no borders, that exploit the best minds wherever they are. In the past, we have bringing together the research facilities using high-speed networks. This is a never-ending story. We will need to reinforce more the capabilities of GIA. We need to see how far we can make GIA not just delivering an operational network for researchers, but also how can we use GIA to be the instigator of new avenues in the domain of internet. When we think about a computational infrastructure, and a lot has been done in terms of grids and high-performance computing, but we are now in a moment where high-performance computing can be useful in so many contexts. We are now in the moment where grids become so much popular through clouds, for example, that we cannot ignore that the work done in research infrastructures, the work done in e-infrastructures have now a higher degree of impact in society in general and in the research in general. At this respect, I would like to recall that we have recently launched one important communication on high-performance computing. The high-performance computing that has been published by the Commission recently, the high-performance computing communication, builds on the achievements that have been reached in the past through initiatives like PRAISE, very much oriented towards the demand side and the service to the researchers, and calls upon a global strategy that brings demand and provision side together. I mean, it's very important that member states consider the challenges that such an holistic perspective will bring to us. It's not anymore just to consolidate our high-performance computing centers, is to bring them into a cohesive structure, but is also to structure the provision side, is acting on industrial side to see if Europe can consolidate its position in the world scene, not just in terms of high-performance computing in stricto sensu, but in general in computing. There is a challenge in all of that. There is a lot of courage that needs to be taken. I make here an appeal for you to consider the arguments put on the high-performance computing communication, and in national discussions, in discussions amongst researchers, try to see how far this can be a pillar on our strategy for e-infrastructures. But equally, we are about to launch a very important communication on cloud. This is a strategy for Europe around clouds, and I cannot ignore that a lot of work has been done in grids and clouds in the scientific domain. Nobody will be surprised if the current experience in terms of technical terms, but also the challenge that have been overcome throughout the work of grid, EGI, and clouds in trying to ensure that the aspects of IPR, privacy, aspects of security will be used now will be a learning experience for us in defining the objectives for a European cloud strategy that goes much beyond science, but that builds on the experience of science. As I mentioned before, the example of Helix Nebula run by some of the big European organizations for research like EMBL or ESA or CERN is certainly an experience that will be very fundamental when we'll try to define what is going to be called an European cloud partnership, a partnership between public authorities and industrialists to try to develop clouds in Europe. We have also focused very much on data, and it's not by pure accident that big data becomes so important in today's ICT landscape. We have published in the end of last year a package regarding the public sector information and the need to open this data, as well as we have invested significantly, and again a communication will come very soon on open access to scientific results, be it scientific results in the form of papers, be it scientific results in terms of data. Those are just again, relations that you can easily draw between the investments in e-infrastructure and broader research infrastructures, and I would say broader European policies. But above all, let's keep in mind that we serve the users, we serve the research communities, and all the work that we are doing in terms of establishing research networks or computation infrastructures or data infrastructures is to be put at the service of the user communities. They are the ones that will be with us in 2020. They are the ones that know the requirements. Their requirements need to be more stringent than the requirements of the common business. We look for inspiration when we will develop strategies and research and innovation actions in ICT. We look to the example of those communities to develop new products, new services that will be at the service of our citizens in Europe. And we expect that by being very much forward-looking in terms of science, we'll be able to create in Europe a technological basis and a service basis that would allow us to create jobs and to create growth in Europe. And the ICT infrastructure for science will be a cornerstone in our strategy for this, a cornerstone that will allow science to evolve, will allow us to have a different understanding about what is to do science, but will also in general improve the way of living in Europe. Thank you very much for this opportunity.